Good morning, students. So, in this fourth lecture on igneous petrology, today we are going to discuss about reaction series and its application. So, reaction series and principally Bowen's reaction series. Norman Levy Bowen was a Canadian geologist who was born on June 21, 1887 and died on September 11, 1956. During his during his studies on igneous petrology, he contributed a lot on experimental petrology, and his most famous work is known as Bowen's reaction series. Bowen theorized that a crystal liquid fractionation process must have been involved with that allowed early formed crystals to be sequentially segregated from the remaining melt, causing the composition of the melt to change progressively as layers of different composition formed. Or in other words, Bowen theorized that if there is a magma, a molten magma is there, so when the temperature comes down or the magma tries to get solidified, so initially it will have crystal as well as liquid fractionation. It means the early form crystals will actually leave the liquid with a different composition, and this fractionation process must be involved, which happens, which does what? The early form crystals will be sequentially segregated. Means whatever early form crystals will be there, it will be sequentially segregated. And when these crystals are segregated, so the remaining melt will change composition. So like initially if it is a basaltic magma, the composition may change to andesitic magma, and then it can change to even rhyolitic magma. So the composition of the melt will change progressively as layers of different composition formed. So this was his theory. To prove his theory, Bowen did one thing. He collected samples from palisades, sills, basically it was a sill deposit, in his Carnegie laboratory, and he melted those rocks. So after melting, he tried to understand the crystallization sequence of major igneous minerals. So whatever different major igneous minerals that he observed during the crystallization sequence is documented as Bowen's reaction series. So Bowen found by experiment that the order in which minerals crystallize from a basaltic magma, it depends on temperature. It means the different type of crystals which are crystallizing from a basaltic magma, it ideally depends on the temperature. So as a basaltic magma cools down, initially olivine and calcium rich plagioclase crystallize first. So the first mineral to crystallize from a basaltic magma are olivine on one hand and calcium rich plagioclase on the other hand. These are the two minerals which gets crystallized at the initial stage. Once the olivines are removed by any process, so what happens? That the magma is now richer in silica content. Why? Because olivine is already removed, so now the magma whichever is left is more rich in silica content. However, it decreases the iron and magnesium in the parent magma. So once the olivine is removed from the magma and it crystallizes, so the rest of the magma is now more silica content and it is less in iron and magnesium. Upon further cooling, olivine reacts with the liquid and a new chain silicate mineral forms, which is pyroxene, and is produced, and calcium-rich plagioclase react with the liquid to produce less calcium-rich plagioclase. So if the olivine is not removed from that melt, it stays in that particular melt, it will again react with the melt, and after reacting it will form a completely different mineral, which is pyroxene. That is one end of the reaction series. On the other hand, the calcium-rich plagioclase, it again reacts with the liquid and it produces another mineral which is plagioclase only, and it is less calcium-rich plagioclase. So this is a solid solution. The other branch is solid solution, which is the continuous reaction series. So this continuous reaction series, we will have olivine which will react with the melt and it will form pyroxene. And in continuous series, calcium-rich plagioclase, it will react with the liquid and it will produce less calcium-rich plagioclase. But if the olivine and calcium-rich plagioclase are removed from the liquid by crystal fractionation, then the remaining liquid will be more SiO2-rich or silica-rich. And if the process continues, an original basaltic magma can change to first an andesitic magma, then a rhyolitic magma with falling temperature. Yeah. So if the olivine and calcium-rich plagioclase, which crystallizes first, are removed from the liquid, by what process? By crystal fractionation. It means it gets deposited at the bottom of the magma chamber. So in that case, what will happen? That it won't get any avenue to react back with the liquid. So therefore, whatever magma is left, it will be rich in silica and it will be poor in iron and magnesium. And if we allow that reaction series to continue, so slowly and slowly other minerals will get crystallized and it will get separated. So a basaltic magma, it will change to andesitic magma. It means it will get more richer in silica, and then finally it will convert to rhyolitic magma, which is richest in silica with falling temperature. So this is how actually change in magmatic composition takes place from basaltic magma to andesitic magma to rhyolitic magma. So it describes the formation of igneous rock from different starting temperatures and magma composition. Why Bowen's reaction series is important? Because Bowen's reaction series is an ideal series which describes how igneous rocks forms from different starting temperature and different magma composition. So fractional crystallization. If you look at the figure below, it shows an ideal example of fractional crystallization. So what is that? It's a process by which minerals are formed and removed from the molten rock. So if you look at the first figure, here there is a molten rock or magma is there, and there are some crystals which starts forming. So once the crystal starts forming, it settles down at the bottom of the magma chamber, and then a second group of mineral forms which again gets settled down at the bottom of the chamber, and then a third group of mineral forms. It also gets settled down in the magma chamber, and in this process the composition of the magma changes from A to B. In these four processes, the composition of the magma changes from A to B with decrease in temperature, and at the same time we will have different zones, like we will have different, not zones, layers. We will have different layers of mineral, like this could be olivine, this could be pyroxene, this could be amphibole. So we can have different type of minerals in layers. Bowen recognized that there are two basic types of reactions that can occur under equilibrium conditions between a melt and the minerals that crystallize from it. So if there is an equilibrium condition, and if the minerals which are crystallizing first are not separated, and it reacts with the melt and it forms another mineral with decrease in temperature. So in that case, there are two basic types of reactions which takes place. And what are these reactions? One is called as discontinuous reaction, another is called as continuous reaction. So in discontinuous reaction, it starts with olivine, followed by pyroxene, amphibole, biotite, and then both these series merges together to form potassium-rich feldspar, muscovite, and quartzite. In the continuous limb, there will be calcium plagioclase, and with decrease in temperature, the composition of calcium decreases and sodium increases. So it's a solid solution between sodium and calcium-rich plagioclase. At high temperature, it is calcium-rich plagioclase. At low temperature, it is sodium-rich plagioclase. If we look at the major elements and trends, so in increased temperature, that means when the magma is very hot, at that time we will have more magnesium, calcium, and iron. And once all these minerals starts getting crystallized, like olivine and calcium-rich plagioclase, all this starts getting crystallized. So what we will have? We will be left with more sodium, then we will have more potassium, and finally we will have a pure silica melt, or we will have maximum silica content. And if it is pure silica, then it will crystallize as quartz. Common rocks are, if high temperature minerals crystallizes and then the melt composition or the melt gets crystallized completely, there is nothing left or more silica is not left. In that case, the first rock which we will get is gabbroic basalt, which is richer in olivine, pyroxene, and calcium plagioclase. Then if the crystallization continues for a more lower temperature, if there are more silica content left in the magma and more magma is left, then it will be diuretic or andesitic in composition. If the reaction carries on for further lower in temperature, finally we will have granite and rhyolite, and in that case it is more richer in silica content. So let's start with discontinuous series. The discontinuous reaction series involves distinctly different mineral groups, namely olivine, pyroxene, amphibole, and biotite. Why it is called as discontinuous reaction series? It is called as discontinuous reaction series because when the magma temperature gets decreased, or when the magma temperature gets decreased and mineral starts crystallizing, the first mineral which will form is olivine, Second mineral which is formed will pyroxene, and then followed by amphibole, and then followed by biotite, depending on the composition of the magma. However, all these minerals are very, very different, both in terms of its structure, okay, both in terms of its crystallography. So they are different. So in discontinuous reaction series, it involves distinctly different mineral groups, and they are not related to each other. In the discontinuous reaction series, the high temperature refractory minerals such as magnesium rich olivine crystallize first, removing MgO from the remaining melt. So suppose there is a melt, it will convert to mineral 1 plus mineral 2. Or sometimes peritectic type of reactions can also take place. What happens in peritectic type reaction? That mineral 1, whichever is there, it will again react with the melt, whatever melt is left. So it will again react with the melt, and then it will give rise to mineral 2. So this type of reaction is also possible. What is peritectic reaction? Peritectic reaction is a reaction where a solid phase and liquid phase will together form a second solid phase at a particular temperature and composition, which is possible. So you can see here, so rock types, magma composition will be basaltic first, then andesitic, then rhyolitic with decrease in temperature, and it will indicate increase of silica content. And if you look at the rock type, the initial rock may be peridotitic, then it will be gabbro, diorite, followed by granite. So as a melt cools to the peritectic point, forsterite olivine, which is magnesium rich, crystals react with the melt to produce the orthopyroxene mineral enstatite. So just to give an example, that if a magma starts cooling down, so the first mineral in a peritectic point, so first mineral which will form is olivine, maybe forsterite, which is magnesium rich crystals. So this forsterite will again react with whatever melt is there, okay? And after reacting with the melt, it will produce orthopyroxene mineral enstatite, okay, MgSiO3. And this is a discontinuous melt solid reaction that produces a new mineral with different structure and different composition. So this is called as a discontinuous melt solid reaction. Why? Because the new mineral which is formed, like from forsterite to enstatite, it is completely different structure and different composition. And the equation can be solved like this. Such discontinuous reactions are possible if crystals are allowed to react with the melt in equilibrium condition. If the crystals are allowed to react with the melt in equilibrium condition, then such discontinuous reaction series, getting such reaction series are possible. And if the temperature decreases further, like from 1100 degrees centigrade to 850 degrees centigrade, what will happen? The magma will become richer in silicates, even richer in silicates. So as the temperature decreases, and if magma is still left, okay, so due to this discontinuous reaction as well as continuous reaction, the final magma which will be left will be richer in silicates. So after pyroxene, amphibole begins to form, and the original basaltic magma, it becomes andesitic, okay. So after pyroxene, so whatever melt is left, what it will give rise to? It will give rise to amphibole, and then the original basaltic magma, its composition will change to andesitic magma. So here this is an amphibole crystal, and these are mass of amphibolite. So these are amphibolite rock, and this is an amphibole crystal. So if the temperature decreases further, it means at still lower temperature, discontinuous reaction convert pyroxene to amphibole and amphibole to biotite. So as I discussed earlier, the pyroxene will be converted to amphibole, and if the temperature decreases further, this amphibole will again react with the melt, and it will give rise to biotite. These refractory minerals form a variety of basic rocks layers such as basalt, diabase, and gabbro, with various proportions of olivine, orthopyroxene, clinopyroxene, amphibole, and biotite. And it completely depends on, first of all, temperature, second, composition of the magma. So these two are dominating factor which decides what type of rock will form from what type of melt. If we look at any reaction series, suppose if we are looking from the discontinuous reaction series point of view, the last mineral to crystallize is quartz. Muscovite mica and potassium feldspar also form at almost this temperature. So quartz is the last mineral to crystallize at low temperature, but muscovite mica and potassium feldspar are also formed at the same temperature. All these minerals are poor in mafic components. It means quartz, muscovite mica and potassium feldspar, these are poor in mafic minerals. Mafic minerals like iron and magnesium, which were removed from the melt by minerals that formed earlier. Why they are poor in mafic minerals? They are poor in mafic minerals because already olivine, pyroxene or other minerals which formed, they have taken whatever iron and magnesium was left in the magma, and therefore the magma is poor in iron and magnesium, which are mafic component, and it will be richer in silica. So this is a potass feldspar. This is an example of muscovite, and this is an example of quartz. Now let's discuss continuous reaction series. The continuous reaction series actually is characterized by a complete solid solution series within a single mineral group. So you might have already studied about feldspar mineral group, and other mineral groups also you might have discussed in your mineralogy class. So it involves plagioclase, which is characterized by a complete solid solution series within a single mineral group. And the solid solution series exists between higher crystallization temperature, that is CaO rich plagioclase, and progressively lower temperature, more Na2O rich plagioclase. So initially in this solute solution, the higher temperature crystallization will take place for CaO rich plagioclase, and if temperature goes down or it lowers down, then we will have more Na2O rich plagioclase. In equilibrium condition, early formed CaO rich plagioclase crystals will react with the melt to produce increasingly Na2O rich plagioclase crystal. So what is solid solution? So before discussing solid solution, let's understand what is phase. A phase is a state of matter that is uniform throughout in chemical composition and physical state. So how do you define a phase? Phase is actually a state of matter. So it's a state of matter that is uniform throughout in chemical composition and physical state. So it should be uniform throughout chemical composition as well as physical state. And it is physically distinct and mechanically separable mass of matter. So each phase is physically distinct and mechanically separable mass of matter. Now what is solid solution? So when in a solid, the atoms of solute are present in the lattice of the solvent, it is known as solid solution. And solid state solution of one or more solutes in a solvent is your solid solution. It is considered a solution rather than a compound when the crystal structure of the solvent remains unchanged by addition of the solutes. So there are certain conditions required for solid solution also, which we will discuss in our lecture on phase diagram as well as solid solution. And you might have also studied about the basics of solid solution in your mineralogy classes last year. Now if you look at feldspar, how to identify feldspar? You just check the color of feldspar. If it is pink, if it is fleshy, then it is orthoclase. If it looks like flesh, it is orthoclase. If it is dark, it can be classified as plagioclase. You don't know exactly that what is the composition or what is the exact name or which solid solution part is that, but in general you can say if it is dark, it is plagioclase. However, if the color is light, then you go for checking the striations, whether there are striation marks or not. If there are no striations, it is feldspar. And if there are striations, it is plagioclase feldspar. Okay, if there are striations, then it will be plagioclase feldspar. So what is plagioclase group of mineral? Plagioclase is the name of a group of feldspar minerals that form a solid solution series ranging from pure albite to pure anorthite. So these are the two end members, albite and anorthite. And minerals in this series are a homogeneous mixture of albite and anorthite. So in between we get many different types of minerals, which is a homogeneous mixture of albite and anorthite in different percentage. The name of the mineral in the series are arbitrarily given based upon their relative abundance of albite and anorthite. So whatever name is given to these minerals are arbitrarily given based on relative abundance of albite and anorthite. In general, we call this whole rock group as plagioclase, and each of these rocks are called as plagioclase. Why? Because the mineral of the plagioclase series are very similar and difficult to tell apart without laboratory testing. It means if you are seeing any plagioclase rock, Just by looking or just by studying its field occurrence in hand specimen, it is very difficult to tell that which type of plagioclase it is. It is albite or anorthite or in between something. And because of that, any rock of certain characteristics is called as plagioclase unless we are doing laboratory test and we are finding out its composition. It means how much percentage of albite is there, how much percentage of anorthite is there. Okay. Thus, the name plagioclase is commonly used in many field and classroom situations. So, most of the time we call this whole rock group as plagioclase. Yeah, this is a solid solution of a plagioclase where there will be liquid phase, plagioclase plus liquid, and plagioclase. We will discuss about the solid solution series once we study the phase diagram. And different end members between albite and anorthite are oligoclase, andesine, labradorite, and bitonite. And this particular pictures, it shows how different end members look like or in between members look like this is albite, oligoclase, andesine, labradorite, bitonite, and anorthite. Limitations of Bowens reaction series. What are the limitations of Bowens reaction series? The first thing is the entire series is not found in nature, but many magmatic rocks shows part of the sequence, and the main limitations are the state of the liquid, the rate of cooling, and the tendency of mineral crystals to settle under gravity. So the first important limitation is that in nature, we don't see the entire sequence of Bowens reaction series, like the discontinuous series and continuous series starting from olivine as well as calcium-rich plagioclase and ending at quartz. It is not possible to see the whole series in nature many times. And the main limitations are the state of the liquid, the rate of cooling, and the tendency of mineral crystals to settle down under gravity. We don't know exactly, so this is the main limitation. So if the liquid is depleted from an element needed for a particular mineral, the series containing that mineral is discontinuing. It means if certain magma is depleted in certain type of element which is required for the formation of certain type of mineral, so what will happen? That mineral is discontinuing. There won't be that mineral in that particular sequence. If the magma cools faster, then the reaction can continue. The early minerals may remain in partially absorbed form. This changes the evolution of magma. So if cooling is very faster, so the early minerals may remain in partially absorbed form, and this changes the evolution of magma. If the crystals can rise or sink, they stop reacting with the liquid and settle elsewhere. So this is also one of the conditions. So if there is the crystals, either it rises up or it sinks, so there won't be any reaction, and therefore the composition of magma won't change, and therefore we won't get the ideal Bowens reaction series in nature. So these are few of the conditions in which complete Bowens reaction series of minerals won't be seen in any rock because of different reasons. So next we are going to discuss about Bowens reaction series and igneous rock, Bowens reaction series and physical conditions, crystal zonation, reaction rim, weathering, petrogenesis like gabbro basalt, granite rhyolite, diorite, andesite, etc., and crystal separation. So let's discuss one by one. Bowens reaction series and igneous rocks. So if you look at any igneous rocks, whether it is aphanitic or it is phaneritic, aphanitic means where the grains are very, very small, and phaneritic means where the grains are bigger, conspicuously bigger, or which are visible in naked eye. So in aphanitic we can have basaltic, as well as in phaneritic we can have gabbroic if the rock has got more olivine as well as some amount of pyroxene and some amount of calcium-rich plagioclase. We will have andesite and diorite in aphanitic and phaneritic group if the rocks are pyroxene, amphibole, and biotite, and here it is in between calcium and sodium plagioclase. And if it is without quartz, then we can have trachyte and syenite, and if it is with quartz, we can have rhyolite and granite at lowest temperature. So the main minerals will be biotite, potassium feldspar, muscovite, quartz, and sodium-rich feldspar. So this type of minerals are possible, and based on that we will get different type of rocks. This is all about physical conditions and Bowens reaction series. So if you look at the physical condition and Bowens reaction series, you will realize that those minerals like olivine, pyroxene, these are unstable at 1 bar and 25 degrees centigrade, which is surface condition. However, quartz, muscovite, they are more stable at 1 bar and 25 degrees centigrade. So it means The high temperature minerals are less stable and the low temperature minerals are more stable. The high temperature minerals contains high amount of calcium, magnesium and iron, and the low temperature minerals will contain more potassium, sodium and silica. The high temperature minerals are formed at high temperature and pressure. Low temperature minerals are formed at low temperature and pressure. High temperature minerals are low silica mineral and low temperature minerals are high silica mineral. So these are the physical conditions which are related to Bowens reaction series. Now Bowens reaction series and crystal zoning. Sometimes we see that within a crystal there are some zoning present or zones present. So what does it indicate? When discontinuous and continuous reaction series or reactions do not proceed to completion under equilibrium condition. So because of certain reason, if the discontinuous reaction and continuous reaction, it doesn't proceed to completion. So what will happen? Chemical variations can be preserved within crystals recording zone crystals and reaction rims. So within a crystal, you can see either zone crystals or sometimes within a crystal you can see reaction rims. So let's discuss one by one. Zone crystals. Zone crystal display a systematic pattern of chemical variation from the periphery of the crystal towards its center, recording an incomplete continuous chemical reaction between the crystal and the surrounding melt. So if a crystal is formed of suppose plagioclase, or if a crystal is formed out of any of the mineral which indicates the continuous reaction series, and the best example is plagioclase. So in that series, if the reaction is not complete, it is incomplete. So what will happen, that we will get a crystal where we will have different type of zones. Like the inner core can be richer in calcium rich plagioclase and the outer core will be richer in sodium rich plagioclase. So we can have different zones and in between we'll have different composition. So like inside is calcium rich, and then as we move towards outside, the calcium content will decrease and sodium content will increase, and finally at the outer core you will have sodium rich plagioclase. So such type of zone crystals, it indicate incomplete continuous reaction series or continuous chemical reaction, not discontinuous. Okay, just remember that zone crystals are in incomplete continuous chemical reaction. For example, incomplete solid solution reactions involving plagioclase produce zone crystals in which a calcium oxygen rich plagioclase core may be rimmed by Na2O plagioclase. And these are some beautiful examples of zone plagioclase crystal, and the central part is calcium rich and the outer part is sodium rich. Okay. This is how the rock will look like in hand specimen, and if we dissect along one particular zone crystal, how it will look like. Second is reaction rims. So we have discussed about zone crystals, now reaction rims. Reaction rims displays a new mineral along the crystal periphery that surrounds a partially resorbed core composed of a different mineral. Okay, so in reaction series, unlike zone crystals where what will happen, that we will have a solid solution as different zones. Here we will have inner core of one mineral and outer core of another mineral. Okay, and this can take place only in case of discontinuous reaction series. So reaction rims takes place in case of discontinuous reaction series, not continuous reaction series. Zone crystals takes place in case of continuous reaction series. Reaction rims takes place in discontinuous reaction series, and therefore here we will have completely different mineral at the core and we'll have completely different mineral along the rim. For example, hornblende rims commonly develop on augite cores, and reaction rims indicate incomplete discontinuous chemical reaction between crystal and melt. So if you see hornblende rims commonly develop on augite cores, such type of crystals are called as reaction rim. This is called as reaction rim, and it indicates incomplete discontinuous chemical reaction. Bowens reaction series and weathering. How Bowens reaction series actually explains weathering. So if you look at Bowens reaction series and weathering, you will realize that minerals that crystallize at high temperatures generally break down more quickly on the surface of the earth, or the minerals, high temperature minerals, are less stable in the present earth condition, like 1 bar pressure as well as 25 degrees centigrade or something in between. So it is not stable, and therefore high temperature minerals break down, and it is very rare that they will be preserved and they will weather very fast. On the other hand, minerals that crystallize at low temperatures are more abundant on the surface because they are more resistant to weathering. So the low temperature minerals are more abundant in nature because they are more resistant to weathering. They are more resistant to weathering. Therefore, if you look at the sequence, you will realize that the high temperature minerals are least resistant and they are more susceptible to chemical weathering, and the low temperature minerals are more resistant and they are less susceptible to chemical weathering. Petrogenesis. So, Bowman's reaction series and petrogenesis, how it is important. The composition of the original magma is critical to magma crystallization because it determines how far the reaction process can continue before all of the silica is used up. So the most important thing is what is the composition of the original magma. Depending on the composition of the original magma, it will decide that which minerals will crystallize and how far the reaction process can continue before all of the silica is used up. So if any magma is rich in, very poor in silica, it will not reach up to rhyolitic stage or granitic stage. Rather, it will be over by andesitic stage itself, or it will give rise to andesitic rock itself, and then the melt will be over. These may be mafic, intermediate, and felsic in composition. And if you look at the composition, mafic magmas have 45% to 55% silica, 25% total of FeO and MgO plus CaO, and about 5% Na2O plus K2O. Felsic magmas, on the other hand, have much more silica, which is 65 to 75%, and Na2O plus K2O around 10%, and much less FeO and MgO plus CaO, about 5%. So this is the composition of mafic, intermediate, and felsic magma. So as the mafic magma starts to cool, some of the silica combines with iron and magnesium to give rise to olivine. So when mafic magma starts to cool, some amount of silica will combine with iron and magnesium and it will give rise to olivine. And as it cools further, much of the remaining silica goes into calcium-rich plagioclase, and any silica left may be used to convert some of the olivine to pyroxene. So in case of mafic magma, so mafic magma are those magma where silica content is less and iron and magnesium will be more. So in such type of magma, what will happen that initially some amount of the silica will combine with iron and magnesium, it will give rise to olivine, and if it cools further, whatever magma is left, if it cools further, what will happen, the remaining silica, it will go into the formation of calcium rich plagioclase, and if further silica is left, then it can be used to convert some of the olivine to pyroxene. So that's how different type of minerals will form. Soon after that, all of the magma is used up and no further changes takes place. Why? Because there is no more silica left, and the minerals present will be olivine, pyroxene, and calcium rich plagioclase. So it means in case of mafic magma, once the olivine forms using some amount of silica and iron and magnesium, the remaining of the silica will be used to form calcium rich plagioclase, and whatever left silica, it will be used to convert some of the olivine from here to pyroxene. And after that, the whole reaction ends because there is no more silica left, and the final mineral which will form is olivine, pyroxene, and calcium rich plagioclase. So if the magma cools slowly underground, the product will be gabbro, and if it cools quickly at the surface, the product will be basalt. So in plutonic condition, it will give rise to gabbro, and in volcanic condition, it will give rise to basalt. However, the mineralogy and composition is same in both the cases, in case of gabbro and basalt. Only difference is in case of texture. It means mineralogy is same, but texture is different. Felsic magmas or magmas rich in silica. If a magma is rich in silica, when it cools down, then mafic magmas, when it crystallizes begins, because they don't have to be as hot to remain liquid, and so they may start out crystallizing pyroxene, not olivine and plagioclase. So felsic magmas can be of low temperature. If felsic magmas forms somewhere, like how the magma forms in different type of settings, we have already discussed in our previous lecture. So if a felsic magma forms somewhere, temperature is not very high, it is less. And since temperature is less, so what will happen? There will be no scope for any crystallization of olivine. Rather, it will start with crystallizing pyroxene and not olivine and plagioclase. So it, rather than starting from olivine, it will start from pyroxene and plagioclase. And if the cooling continues further, definitely the cooling will continue further because the silica content is very, very high. So various reactions on the discontinuous branch will proceed because silica is abundant, and the plagioclase will become increasingly sodium rich, and eventually potassium feldspar and quartz will form. So commonly even very felsic rocks will not have biotite or muscovite because they may not have enough aluminium or enough hydrogen to make the OH complexes that are necessary for mica minerals. So for formation of mica minerals, we need OH complexes and we need aluminium. Okay. So if these are not there, so what will happen? That very felsic rocks will also not give rise to biotite or muscovite. So typical felsic rocks are granite and rhyolite. Granite is a plutonic rock and rhyolite is a volcanic rock. It means granite is found if the magma cools down inside the earth and crystals are bigger, and rhyolite forms when the magma comes to the surface and then crystallizes. So compositionally and mineralogically, both the rocks are same. Difference is in textures between granite and rhyolite. So the cooling behavior of intermediate magmas lies somewhere between those of mafic and felsic magmas, and typical intermediate rocks are diorite and andesite. So this is an example of different rocks, like the bottommost rock is basalt in case of volcanic, gabbro in case of plutonic, andesite in case of volcanic, diorite in case of plutonic, rhyolite in case of volcanic, granite in case of plutonic, and this is cut by pegmatite. So it indicates increase in feldspar. Here it is rich in mafic minerals, here it is rich in felsic minerals. These are fine grained, these are coarse grained. These are volcanic rocks, these are plutonic rocks. Clear? So next is Bowen's reaction series and crystal separation. So how crystal separations may take place. So if a magma has low viscosity, okay, low viscosity means ideally it should be a mafic magma. So if a magma has low viscosity, which is mafic magma, the crystals that form early, such as olivine, it may slowly settle towards the bottom of the magma chamber. So if we look at this particular figure, so this is a mafic magma which has got low viscosity. So why it has got low viscosity, we have discussed in our previous lecture. So kindly go back to my lecture number 3. So when olivine form, it will try to settle down towards the bottom of the magma chamber. So after that, the olivine once settles down at the bottom of the magma chamber, it stops the chemical reaction between the magma and the minerals. So it will stop the chemical reaction. And then the crystal separation can occur when crystals settle to the bottom of the magma body and liquid is squeezed from the crystal mush to form two distinct igneous bodies with different composition. So when, like initially olivine will crystallize, then pyroxene will crystallize, then plagioclase feldspar will crystallize. So what will happen, that layer by layer different type of minerals will crystallize and it will settle down. So what will happen, that all the magma will be squeezed out. Why? Because of the density difference, it will settle down and the magma will be squeezed out, and we will have distinct different composition in that particular igneous body. So we will have distinct different composition, like the bottom will be olivine rich, then we can have pyroxene rich, then we can have plagioclase feldspar. So if you look at the settling velocity as well as crystallization, first it will be olivine, pyroxene and plagioclase feldspar. When it settles down, first is pyroxene because it is faster compared to plagioclase, which is slower. So this means that the overall composition of the magma near the top of the magma chamber will become more felsic as it is losing some iron and magnesium rich components. And this process is known as fractional crystallization. So if you look here, so what will happen, that initially the magma was mafic and then it was intermediate and then the magma was felsic. So if we move up at the end, what we will find, that towards the upper part the magma is more felsic. It is more felsic in composition, and this composition of the melt is not same like this composition of the melt. Why? Because most of the mafic minerals are already crystallized, and this is called as fractional crystallization. The crystals that settle might either form an olivine-rich layer near the bottom of the magma chamber, or they might remelt because the lower part is likely to be hotter than the upper part. So what will happen that in these magma chambers, like initially the olivine will form and then it will settle down, followed by pyroxene as well as plagioclase feldspar, calcium-rich plagioclase feldspar. So either it will form a separate layer, it may form a separate layer, or on the other case, since the bottom of the magma chamber is hotter, since it is hotter, so what it will do, it can remelt these olivine, pyroxene and plagioclase. So if it remelts these crystals, the magma at the bottom will be more mafic. The composition of the magma at the bottom will be more mafic than what was the composition at the beginning. Like at the beginning, the composition was like this, but now the composition is more and more mafic. This is an ideal example which shows grain size graded layering of olivine and pyroxene rich layers of the Duke Island ultramafic intrusion. So you could see different graded layers. So if the crystal settling does not take place because the magma is too viscous, so when it is too viscous in case of felsic magma. So if the magma is too viscous, crystals won't get any avenue to settle down. Then the process of cooling will continue as predicted by the Bauer's reaction series. So it means in case of felsic magma, the ideal Bauerian reaction series could be seen. So in some cases, however, partially cooled but still liquid magma with crystals in it will either move further up into a cooler part of the crust or all the way to the surface during a volcanic eruption. So suppose there is a felsic magma which is more viscous. So since the magma is more viscous, whatever crystals formed, these crystals will again react with the melt and it will follow an ideal Bauer's reaction series and different minerals can form. And what will happen that sometimes whatever cooling takes place, this magma can be emplaced in shallower depth or it may erupt as a volcanic eruption. If it comes out as a volcanic eruption or if it is emplaced on a shallower depth, what it will do, it will get crystallized there and then we can have two different sizes of grains. So an igneous rock with large crystals embedded in a matrix of finer crystals is indicative of a two-stage cooling process and the texture is porphyritic. So in that case, what we will get porphyritic texture. It means initially the crystals were forming, then the magma was emplaced in shallower depth or else it was erupted as a volcano. So when it is erupted as a volcano or it is crystallized in a shallower depth, there will be some bigger crystals followed by fast cooling in upper part, which will have two different sizes of grain. And since we have got two different sizes of grain where there is a large crystal embedded in a matrix of finer crystals, it is called as porphyritic texture. And if we get porphyritic texture anywhere, we can say that it indicates two-stage cooling process. Two-stage cooling process means initially it was cooling slowly and then it cooled faster, and therefore the bigger grain it indicates slow cooling and the smaller grain it indicates faster cooling. So this is an example, volcanic porphyry, where olivine crystals can be seen in Hawaiian basalt. So there are lots of olivine crystal in Hawaiian basalt. What does it indicate? That the melt, it was crystallizing and there were many olivines which was not settling down to the magma chamber because the viscosity was not very less, it was high. And then it erupted, and when it erupted, the olivine was already crystallized, followed by the other mineral which formed as glass or fine matrix, and this is a porphyritic texture. So it is an intrusive porphyritic texture. So thank you so much for attending this lecture, and we'll follow with other lectures in next week. Thank you.